determination is why he's going to become our next president. And why I know that when my father says he can fix the country, he means it. You want to know what kind of president he'll be? Let me tell you how he ran his businesses. And I know, because I was there with him, by his side, on job sites, in conference rooms, from the time I could walk.
This November, I ask you to be true to yourself and vote for the candidate who you know is running for the right reasons. Vote for the candidate who has never been a politician. Vote for the candidate who has never received a paycheck from our government. Vote for the candidate who can't be bought, sold, purchased, bribed, coerced, intimidated, or steered from the path that is right and just and true. And quite frankly, friends, vote for the one candidate who does not need this job.
Wow. There is no question the kids are the standouts here. Those were the Trump brothers at the Republican convention. Joining us now, son of the Republican presidential nominee and executive vice president at the Trump Organization, Donald Trump Jr. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
Great job so far amidst very weird circumstances.
It's a crazy ride. I mean, I've been talking with Mark a little bit about it throughout the journey, and it's been incredible just to be a small cog in the wheel on this process, trying to really, right this ship that's gone so wrong. So it's been awesome.
We all said the other day after the speech, a star was born. Said you were a star up there. Did you go to your dad and say, "Hey, Dad, pressure's on"?
Yeah. Well,
I kicked ass. Now it's your turn.
Don't kid yourself. I mean, there's a little bit of natural competition within the family. So
Oh, really?
I never would have just waiting for someone to totally choke, just so we can give a little bit of stuff.
These two, he and his brother had an argument on Morning Joe just because I asked which one was, I think, funnier or something, and they just broke out.
It's obviously a no-brainer, and I won the argument.
Yeah, I don't know. Eric is not here.
Eric,
that is not fair.
Yeah.
No, but tell me a little bit about how it's gone along so far in terms of strategy. You've heard some criticism probably on this set in terms of, for example, something on let me take something, the Melania speech. Are you guys learning along the way about some kind of the basic things?
Well, listen, I think so. Listen, Melania, she did a phenomenal job, first of all. I mean, to get up there, and you know her,
and we all said the same.
But she's also private. I mean, she doesn't show up, and my father doesn't, do the, hey, I'm going to bring out the, the grandkids and the this for the photo op. That's not his style. I mean, everyone else is pandering that way. They hold up the grandchild like it's a trophy, make sure you get the right angle, and, we'll run with that photo, because my father thinks it's too serious an issue that we're in as a country. We actually have to talk about those issues. Listen, we aren't politicians. I mean, that's not what we've done. We've been in this, I joke, I've been a politician for 3 weeks now. I think we've figured it out pretty well. I think we're serious about what it means for this country to change it. I think if you look at the last few decades, you can say, you know what, I don't know that politicians have exactly served us well.
So that's the best argument I've ever heard for the Melania speech, saying we're learning along the way. We're not politicians. Things happen. She did a great job. I'm wondering why your campaign chair was like accusing Hillary Clinton and kind of lying about it.
I don't think he lied about it. I mean, she wanted to, be involved in writing a speech. She worked with someone who wasn't part of the campaign. I mean, we all sort of ran our own track. And again, remember, we're running a campaign with 70 people, 80 people versus, a 980-person machine.
And
you know
is
what?
that changing? You guys are wrapping
listen,
up
that's going to grow. Phase. We're transitioning into the next phase. I mean, again, a few months ago, who would have even thought this, right? Other than perhaps a couple of us who know my father so well.
We've always told people, like 5 months ago, there were like 4 or 5 people in the Trump headquarters, wires hanging down from an old set, and a cat walking across. I mean, you guys have done this on a shoestring. How quickly, though, are you getting it revved up?
Well, it's getting revved up very quickly. And I mean, you can see that in, I think, the convention, and I think everything else that's going on. I think, more importantly, by having been able to do it on a shoestring, doesn't that say everything we need to know? When you talk about all the bloat, all the excess, waste, fraud, abuse that's going on in this country, to be able to do what my father's done on that budget, out of his own pocket, with that small a team, I mean, isn't that what we want for our government? I mean, if we could get rid of all of that excess, imagine what you could do with a surplus for a change. Imagine what you could do for education. Imagine what you could do for our vets coming back. Imagine, hey, by the way, once we take care of ourselves, then maybe we can actually take care of the rest of the world. Right now, I said it in my speech, we're more concerned about the feelings of those people abroad who would push a button and wipe us off the face of the earth if they had the option than we are our own people. And it's ridiculous.
You were in that arena across the street last night for an incredible scene that everyone's going to be talking about today. yesterday where Ted Cruz gives his speech, does not endorse your father, and the crowd starts booing and heckling. Were you guys surprised that Ted Cruz did not endorse, or did you know that wasn't coming?
We knew that wasn't coming. Again, my father wanted all the guys that, wanted to be here. He wanted to give them a platform. I think he wants to show that he's about unity, so he knew that was happening, and he was a better man about it. Go ahead. And, honestly, in the end, and listen, there hasn't been much disunity there. I was on the floor when we threw him over the top, and it was, a surreal experience. I got to do it as a delegate from New York, and, other than maybe the birth of my children, it was one of the coolest moments of my life in terms of just magnitude.
Yeah.
Did your gravitas. So, if there was any doubt left going into yesterday, I think him doing that galvanized everyone, and you heard it. I mean,
Ted Cruz,
they went crazy.
Cruz,
if there were a couple detractors left, they got on board because you know what? Everyone else in that arena and everyone else, who's a conservative in this country, they realize that the number one objective is making sure that Hillary Clinton doesn't end up in the office.
Hey, Willie, it's what I've always said about Ted Cruz. He's a uniter.
He's a uniter. You've always said that.
he brought the party together.
He did a phenomenal job bringing the party together. So I'd like to thank him for the greatest endorsement we could have possibly received.
Don, did your father or did anyone in the campaign lobby Ted Cruz or ask for Ted Cruz's endorsement before the speech?
It's interesting. I mean, there's been a lot of people speaking, with people, from the campaign, from the Cruz camp and stuff like that. I have a lot of friends in Texas that know both sides, that are friends with both sides. So there have been, some conversations back and forth about seeing what we could do. I don't think anything, too serious. I don't think, at this point, once we became the presumptive nominee, it didn't matter as much. We'd love to be able to do it. I was with a lot of those people last night. They were not pleased. And I think a lot of the quotes I kept hearing from, guys I know that were just Texans that are from the military and that background to guys that are Texans that are big, Republican financiers. And, I think one of the quotes I heard was, I'm never writing a check to him again.
I need to let Mark and John jump in here because I'm sure they'll have the smart questions. But before we do that, while you're along, while we're talking about you talking to other campaigns, there was a report yesterday morning saying that you were in contact with John Kasich's campaign. You all offered the vice presidency to him, said he could run domestic and foreign policy, and your response was, when asked, well, what will your father do? And you said, make America great again. True.
Now, come on. Were there conversations 100%? Right. This was early April. We hadn't won Pennsylvania yet. We hadn't won New York yet. We're having conversations. To me, that was strategy, talking about
Right.
You guys know me well enough, and you see the way I conduct myself, certainly, publicly. Do you think I would say you'd run foreign and domestic policy and he'd be in charge of making America great again? Does it sound like me? It's a little ridiculous.
Might sound like a certain advisor for John Kasich.
Yeah, well, and listen, I know who that is, and I was in communication with them, just like I've been in communication with a lot of other camps, talking about strategy going forward. To me, at the time, that made a lot of sense, right?
Did the
delegate game being played.
Did the Times call you and ask you to confirm that story?
No, they didn't.
Because it's such an outrageous quote. I couldn't believe that it got in without somebody reaching out to you.
Yeah, no, it's a shame, and that's the game that I want to play, because there's a narrative that someone's trying to push, whether it's to make me look like an idiot or whatever it may be. But no, listen, were there conversations? 100%. We didn't know what was going on with the delegate count. We were going to play a game making sure that we had that secured. One way or the other, we were going to win this. We didn't need it in the end. He hasn't been on the short list in a long time.
Yeah.
But there was a time where you said, hey, we don't know where this is going yet. We're doing this. Let's play a strategy game. That's called good strategy, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, would I say you're in charge of foreign and domestic policy, and my father's going to be in charge of making it? You guys be the judge. I'll let you decide.
I would not want to be in the room when you pass that info back to your dad.
Correct.
Just to clarify, though, he was offered the vice president?
No, we
talked about the slot or not?
We talked about it as a potential, right? We talked about it to say, hey, if you did this, and by the way, there was something to say about, hey, my father's a New Yorker. We've never been in D.C. As a vice president, you would be intimately involved in this because we got to learn to navigate D.C. 100%.
Right.
Was that said, hey, was it done? No. Was it, hey, you got it if it's, no. We didn't even start vetting. Yeah, you can't just, you can talk about it in theory, sure, 100%.
Right.
We didn't even start vetting. He never even met my father. The biggest conversation was, hey, we should get them together. Particularly, we should get them together on a golf course. They both like the game. Let's see how they get along, and then we can take it to the next step. So, as usual, it was sort of forced dialogue, trying to create a story, conveniently on the day that we introduce our actual, vice president pick. It sounds a little bit more like sour grapes to me.
We've all seen your father give live speeches on television. Now, how will tonight be different from what he's done before?
Listen, I don't know. I mean, I think obviously there's a element of gravitas to the moment. this you saw me for the first time probably ever get reasonably emotional even the other day, taking it over the top. So he certainly understands that. And, at the same time, my father's always going to talk to the people that got him here. It's not going to be just about talking to, the elites in that talking point. It's going to be making sure that the American people know that he's still out for them, that he's talking with them, as he always have, not to them and at them, like so many of the other politicians.
We hear new lines from him. That
I imagine you'll hear some new lines. I've been running around a little bit crazy this week, so I haven't gone through the final yet. But it'll be a really good speech.
So the argument so far has been, or a narrative so far, is that this convention has appealed to who you already have. There's a lot of anti-Hillary hatred and lock her up and all that happening on the floor, and doesn't bring in any new people. Can your father do anything to change that?
Listen, I think you're going to see that. I think if you look at what's going on the map, and Mark, you can talk to it probably better than I can. I think Oregon, we're -1 or 2. A state that hasn't been in play forever. Connecticut, we're net neutral. Never heard of that before. Numbers elsewhere. New York, we're going to do very well in. I'm not saying we're going to win it,
right.
But we're going to put it into play.
Make it competitive.
And you know what? I can't name another candidate that we ran of all the great guys, and many of them have become friends of mine that we were running against that could possibly do that. And by the way, more importantly than all of that, we're doing that having spent virtually nothing in advertising. So we're competing against someone who's already put $150 million or so into negative attack ads in these states against us, and we're in a dead heat, and in many cases leading in the swing states. So I think that's a pretty compelling message to what the American people are thinking.
You've had a good taste of politics over the last few months. To say the least.
Yeah.
After your speech the other night, there was talk in political circles and the New York tabloids that this guy maybe should run for mayor of New York City, should have a political future. Is that something that would interest you in the future?
I think I got to get my kids out of the house and finish some stuff I want to do in my own career. It has been fascinating. If that's the way I can serve our country one day, I want to do it. We talked about it a little bit last night. If I were to do it, hopefully it'd be after a guy like my father's in an office where you can clean up and get rid of some of the hanger-oners that I've seen. I've met some impressive people. I've met some great people in the process, but I've also met a vast majority of people that, they're just hanging around the rim, like waiting for scraps.
Welcome to politics. Yeah.
You just described politics.
You just described.
Yeah, well, but and that's a shame. And if we could get rid of that, if you could streamline the process and have people who really want to be there, not trying to, as I said in my speech, not use the highest office in the land as a path to personal enrichment. When I hear about a life of public service, I don't know that many lives of public servants who have $200 million in the bank, having never created anything, having never hired anyone, having never built anything, simply peddling influence. And I think that's why so many people are jaded with Washington.
And you think that's what the Clintons have been doing with the global initiative?
Come on. Of course.
I'm just trying to get you to get there and say their name.
He's very New York.
I'd say that's pretty much what everyone thinks about the Clintons. This isn't a new thing over the last few years. That's been what's going on for decades.
Come on, Joe.
All right.
Come on.
I just wanted you to say the name.
Donald Trump Jr., thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very good to have you on the show. Coming up, Bill Kristol.